Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Govs on the Go Alumni Edition, a podcast featuring alumni from the College of Arts and Letters here at Austin Peay State University. My name is Dr. Buzz, and I'm the Dean of the college. I'm also the host of the podcast, and today I'm talking with Khari Turner, who graduated from Austin Peay back in 2019. Welcome to the podcast. Good to talk with you.
Great to talk to you. That was good. That was nice.
Well, it took a little warm up here. I haven't done a podcast episode in a while, and I'm so glad to have you on because everybody, since I got on campus, said I should be talking to you. So I'm just telling you that it's a real treat for me to be able to have you as a guest.
Oh no! That's so nice of them.
Yeah, so we're going to get into all of your time here in Clarksville, but let's back up and tell everybody what's going on in your life. Where are you? Catch everybody up to speed.
Yeah. So right now I'm in Brooklyn, New York, in my studio. I've been here since 2019 when I came up here for school. Right now I'm working on a show that I'm going to have in Nashville in September 2nd at Red Arrow Galleries, and I'm working with a bunch of stained glass. So there's a lot going on right now in terms of that. But just living in Brooklyn right now and just hanging out, working, and yeah, keeping it going.
So everybody, I hope you hear that. September 2nd, you'll have a chance to see him again and show him the love. So let's talk about go back. I like to go back to your origin story, I call it, and talk about growing up. You said you were from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Yep.
And you mentioned that you sort of had the theme of water often in your art. You sort of had that as a focus. And so no one's been up in Wisconsin. Lots of lakes up there.
Oh yeah.
Lots of water. So what did you like to do when you were young? How were you sort of influenced?
Well, I have a bunch of different influences actually, but the main one that kind of has me where I'm at now was water. Living next to Lake Michigan. Lake Michigan is huge. It doesn't feel like it because when you see it on a map next to an ocean, it seems small. But then you realize it is the length of the entire state and then like a part of another state, and then surrounds a whole other state. And so you're huge. So when I go out to them, it feels like the ocean in a lot of different ways. And so Lake Michigan is huge in my work, and just one of the different parts of the aspects of like, what do I look like, or what do I look to for, inspiration in terms of what's the next thing? Because a lot of my time as a kid was just spent sitting in front of Lake Michigan and just skipping rocks and hanging out and just,
You like to be outdoors.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was a really good time.
So, when did you get a realization that you had sort of an affinity, this ability to express yourself through art?
That happened really early. I've always known I was going to be some type of artist. I didn't know exactly what the field of art was going to take me to, but I knew art was going to be it, regardless of what it was. I was going to make art work. And so, at first I thought I was going to be like a police sketch artist, or I was going to be an animator, or I was like thinking of every single way that I could make this, this thing happen. And so I only just now got to the point where I am like a full-fledged just artist. I paint and I do paintings, and then I sell those paintings. Only recently have I really got to that point. Art was always going to be the goal. I just didn't know what type of art at first. And I loved making art. Like, I was terrible in high school. And I was okay at AP, but art was all I wanted to do. And so art was very much the whole propelling aspect of going to school, was just like, keep going and make more art.
I always think that we have different mentors, we have different advocates for us throughout our different periods of life. And so who was an early person that really supported you and said, keep doing that, keep expressing yourself with your art?
A lot of people, honestly. Milwaukee is a great place, but also Milwaukee is very high on all the list of most dangerous cities type things. So keeping out of trouble was number one for my family, and as long as I was out of trouble, I really didn't have any problems. And art was one of those things that always kept me out of trouble. One, because people who are in trouble always look at the kid over there drawing and just like, what is he doing? And then just like leave. So it became a great tool for me to be able to stay out of trouble. But like my grandfather was a draftsman, so I saw him drawing all of the time and really doing his thing. And then my mom was also again one of those people who just like, what you doing? And I'm like, I'm just drawing. Just like, all right, keep it going. Whatever you got to do to keep going, because I was terrible in school. Any other class, really bad. But if they gave me an art project, I was there. I was always there for it. And so my grandfather for sure, and then my mom as well. Like other family members, like my grandmother and my aunts and everybody else, like saw the talent, and especially as I got older, they understood like what I was going for. And they always mentioned like one of my uncles who had passed, but I had never met him. And they were like, "You draw just like your Uncle Billy," and I was like, okay. And shout out to Uncle Billy. I've never met you, but they tell me about him all the time.
So if any of the family members ever kind of caught up with you now and said, yeah, we were being supportive, but I mean, we didn't know you're going to be this good.
No, I don't actually know. It's kind of funny because they all seen the kind of trajectory happening. And I don't know if that, because I was already like I was solid at drawing for a long time. So like they knew I had enough talent that I could draw a face and make it look exactly like the face that I was looking at. So they knew that the drawing was good. I don't know if they knew I was going to be doing what I'm doing now. But they always saw the vision. And I have like a lot of my family members are artistically inclined, like they do art in some other way or some type of craft. But it never was nobody's really out there like painting or doing anything in terms of like consistently making artwork. They'll do something here, they'll do something here. Like my grandmother made cakes and different flower arrangements and did all this other stuff. My grandfather drew, but he was also a draftsman. So like there was multiple things that kind of was like you see it splices here and there, just like people doing artwork in all different types of ways.
So let's talk about after high school, and you mentioned this that this was part of your struggle, that you were before you come to Austin Peay. You're kind of just you're working, and was art still there?
So right after I got out of high school, I applied to a bunch of different colleges and did some stuff with that, and then end up not going to, or not staying with any college, and then took a whole kind of semester to work on my portfolio to go to art school. Went to art school. In Wisconsin, and my financial aid didn't go through during the semester that I was there. So they're like, hey, you got all this money that was supposed to come from financial aid. It's not coming anymore. We need that money so you can sign up for the next semester. And I was like, I don't have any money. I wasn't working. I was only doing like the Milwaukee Bucks stuff. So I was working for the NBA for a while as a performer. I was a cheerleader and I also did the rim rocker, so like the acro dunk team. So I was doing that, and so like I was only getting paid like couple $100 here, couple $100 here, and they needed like a couple $1,000, and I was like, I don't have it. So I ended up leaving, and then that's when I started working. I was like, okay, I'm gonna just start a job real quick just to get enough money to go back to school and then start back over with the financial aid stuff. And then that one semester turned into 2 semesters, turned into a year, turned into 4 4 years or 5 years. I can't remember. But like yeah, during that whole time I was working in factories. I hated it. There was only a little bit of art every now and then, but that did not keep me in it. Like I just was never happy, and I knew that either I was gonna have to go back to school or I was gonna have to go back to school. There was no, I don't know. I don't know how I was gonna make it at art, but I knew what I was doing was definitely not where I needed to be at all. And it never felt good to know that I had these abilities and weren't doing anything but like stacking boxes all day. So I was just like, yeah, I gotta go. And yeah.
So why Austin Peay? And I am so I'm not gonna I am thankful for this, but how did it happen?
Austin Peay was fantastic. I already had some people that I knew that were already on the cheerleading team at the time, and they told me how great it was and to come down for a visit and everything. And I came down for a visit and stayed for a while, and got all my paperwork and everything together. And eventually enrolled in school, and yeah, that it went from there. All of that. It was really just like my friend Carlos Rios set me up, getting me together, and just like showing me around because I had already gotten to another school in Wisconsin, but he was like, "Hey, you're just gonna be making art up there and not doing anything. We got a cheerleading team down here. I know you were already working for the NBA. We cheerleaded together before he went down. It was like, yeah, come and be a part of the team. And yeah, so when I got and became a part of the team, they also asked if I wanted to be a mascot, and I was like, yeah, because I was a mascot in high school, and I love being a mascot. Being a mascot is fantastic. And so they were like, yeah, come down and get everything together and stay here for a while and get all your documents and then like be a mascot. And I was like, yeah, let's do it.
Well, thank God you are a multi-talented individual for Austin Peay's sake, that you could cheerlead, you could be the mascot. Now, I mean that I think being the governor,
Yeah.
having that as now, were you, because it's in many ways it's very theatrical. I mean, you have this ability to put on a different persona, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So tell me about how maybe your time as the governor, being the mascot, what did you like to do? How did this different personality come out?
It was great. And I think when I got there, it was right in the middle of kind of the old Gov versus the new Gov. And so like the mascot costume changed. It was like really tall and lanky at first and with a huge head. And then it like shrunk down and became a cape and all types of, and like a really long blazer essentially. But like we were in the middle of the mix of those two. So it was really interesting at that time to be able to get a new mascot and costume and then really decide and like work with the other mascots and talk about how do we make this mascot its own personality and how do we keep it going, because essentially a lot of schools or will set up where it's like, all right, just put on a costume and then just act however you want to act. But there's certain schools that are like famous for their mascots, like Auburn, and like the way that certain mascot acts. If any person after is in that mascot costume, they have to act a certain type of way. You have to keep up the persona, and like there's a way that you handle yourself as the mascot. So we were doing a good time of just like messing around, seeing what we'd like to do, having a good time, as well as the teams were winning. So it's always great to be able to be a mascot and have teams win, because then you can do stuff and people are enjoying themselves. If they're losing, being a mascot is hard because you're out in the front and you're trying to pump up the crowd. They're looking at you like, no, we're not doing it right now. So it's rough. But when the teams win it, oh yeah, being a mascot is fantastic. It was a good time.
Do you remember the reactions? Did you get different reactions from people that were college students versus people that were older like me that were there to watch a game?
No. So it's a mix. So like it was kids college students, older people, and then teens, but there wasn't that many teens there.
Yeah.
They always tried to act like they were college students. So, so the college students were rowdy, great time, good time. And it was always like, oh, it's a go, high five, blah, blah, blah. Some people were scared because they're like, they don't like people in costumes, but like it was a good time. And then older people, same thing. A lot of the alumni would be like, yeah, it's the Gov. They appreciated the Gov coming around. If I wanted to go to a barbecue and just randomly show up, they'd welcome me in. I couldn't eat anything because I couldn't feed myself through that little costume. But they were always around. It was just like really, really cool. Now the kids, those were the hard ones. Because first they would try to play with anything that's in the back of me, as well as they would always say, like, I know there's somebody in there. They would try to like look through all my little crevices in the costume. But the last one had like cover pretty much the whole body. So you didn't see anything. And they would always be like, I see your face. And you're like, no, you don't. I know you can't see my face. So it was like it was a really fun time. But yeah, everybody else was pretty good except for the people who were kind of scared, which were some of the teens. But then yeah, the older people, love just, I would walk up to them and nudge them and then do a little dance, and they would dance with me, and it was a good time.
So how did you, and let's talk about as well your academic experience, obviously. What are some of your early memories of being in art and design?
It was really interesting. Again, I came at the time when the school was going through a transition. So when that new building happened was, I think, my sophomore year. And so having that new space was huge because the first year, you do your basic general classes and have, things here and there. And so a lot of that, I was around campus. My kind of second semester sophomore on to like graduating was pretty much in that building because all my other classes were focused on mainly art. And so having that new building and having like a studio space and being in there was, I didn't feel like maybe I can say life-changing in a lot of different ways because I could make art and I was living with a bunch of cheerleaders. So like making art in the living room with a bunch of cheerleaders around wasn't always easy. So having a space that was outside of my home and outside of the apartment I was living in, and that I could go to and leave, my supplies around. And if I finish something, I can come, or I'm working on something, I can come back to it. So having that new building actually was like the biggest thing, and having that space to be able to make art without, any limits other than, how much of this amount of space I can take up was really, really helpful. And the art school was really great because they gave me a lot of different tools and resources. So like I knew that right after I was leaving, I wanted to go right to grad school after APSU because I was like, okay, this is good, but I know I'm gonna need more education than this, and I'm gonna need to learn a lot more because some of the classes I was taking, I was like, okay, this is good, but I'm only gonna get a semester of this. I need to do some more stuff. So like during my end of sophomore year, I was like, how do you get into grad school? I know all of you had to go to grad school, so how do you get in? And they pretty much told me everything I needed to know, and so pretty much my junior and senior year, all I worked on was thinking about how I'm gonna create my senior thesis show and then my applications for grad school.
Well, the former chair, Tony Morris, told me that you asked a special favor that you wanted to have 24-hour access to the building.
I told you that.
He said, and Tony said, I would not have considered it for any other student except for Khari. And what he did is he produced an incredible amount of artwork after that request came through. You spent a lot of time there.
I'm surprised he told you that. It's probably because he's not the chair anymore. No, I was there late because the doors close after a certain while. And again, I'm at a space where I can't, work in my living room with all these cheerleaders around, and I needed that space. And during that, I made a lot of paintings. Like during that phase where I was working and wasn't making much work, I made maybe like 7 pieces in a max amount of like 4 or 5 years. In that art space, I was making somewhere around 4 or 5 pieces every other week. I was in there working crazy. And I mean, not small work either. They were like 5 foot tall, 4 foot wide pieces that I'm working on in that space of, really detailed paintings. And it was all due to the fact that I had the ability that, after practice, because I'm still a cheerleader. I still have to go to practice. I still have to do games. I still have to be active. I was also part of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, so I was also doing fraternity stuff. And so after all of that, I come back to the building, door's locked. I'm like, hey, can I get into this building? Because if I finish all that stuff and I got enough time to get my 8 hours of sleep, but also to head to the studio, I'm like, yeah, let me go to the studio and get in some work, work on some things. Maybe sometimes I might not even work. I'll just sit in there and look at my work and think about stuff. But like, I couldn't do that with all my roommates around.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing to me that the amount of energy a young person has. Your willingness
I didn't feel
do
young. I came in there at 24 and I was like, I'm with a bunch of 19-year-olds. I'm like, man, you guys are active. Like,
well, you also mentioned that you had an opportunity to, I think, do a residency at Chautauqua.
Yeah.
And how that also impacted you. Can you tell our students and our listeners what that meant to you?
That was really, it was the first year that Chautauqua had came to campus, and we had a bunch of different studio visits at the time with the director at the time, who was Sharon Loudon. And, she was definitely like, apply. She saw the work that I was doing, as well as I met my girlfriend at Austin Peay, Ashante Kendall. And so we were both in the studio, in the Living Gallery studio. And so she was like, yeah, you both apply and you check it out and go. And so we applied, obviously, and we got in, and it was transformative towards my practice. So there was a lot of things that I was thinking about during my senior thesis. And then during that summer, I was kind of like, do I keep doing this in grad school or do I do something different? And Chautauqua was multi-week residency. And during that residency, there was different classes, and we talked to different, professional artists and even, career specialists. And when I did all of that, I kind of got to a point where I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do in grad school. I don't want to do this type of work. I don't know exactly what I'm going to be making or what it's going to look like, but I know I wanted to kind of deal with this. And it was water. And like this idea of being connected universally through water. And at first it was going to be like paintings of like silhouettes of bodies and then just like oceans in the silhouette. And then I had this nose and lips idea with like an abstraction. And then I ended up eventually combining those two ideas and doing some other stuff. But the work I made in Chautauqua was the work that transformed and made the work that I make now. And that was, it was huge for me because it gave me, again, I need, as an artist, you always need time. You need time, you need space to be able to think and get out these ideas that you have. And a lot of research. And so, doing those things at Chautauqua was huge for me because it gave me the opportunity to be able to make so many big moves really quickly that changed everything that I was doing.
And you mentioned Ashante that, again, she was the first person I ever had on the podcast, and it's been almost a year.
Oh my goodness. She's doing good. She's living with me here in Brooklyn now.
It took me a year to get around to, having you on now. So we're just going to finish up a little bit here about your time at Austin Peay. Any other, besides Ashante, other people and other professors that you want to mention that really helped, guide, mentor you?
All of the professors, honestly, every single one of them. I was always in a school because I was always in a studio and I had access to the building even when it was closed. Like I was always there. So I got to know and talk to pretty much every professor in one way or another and just like really, figuring out exactly what what I wanted to do. So every single one of them have been fantastic. And all the people who helped with like, cameras and equipment, anything like that, all of those people were fantastic. I was in a dark room. I was all over the place. And so yeah, every single one of those teachers were great.
Oh, that's great. So as you sort of mentioned, after you left Austin Peay, you went to Columbia in New York, and then you got your graduate degree there.
Yep.
And so you finished that up, and you continue to grow, and so let's kind of talk about what you're working on now, and
Yeah.
where you are.
Yeah. So during that whole transition to Columbia, I was like, all right, so how do I make this water people thing work? And so in that, I was working, here and there, trying to just do painting stuff. And then the pandemic hit, literally my next semester. So I got here 2019, 2020, or 2020 is when the whole thing hit. And I was in New York City, which everybody was like, oh, as long as we don't go over there, we won't catch it before it spread across the country. So like I was in the epicenter of the whole thing. And yeah, my grandmother's calling me. My mom's like, are you safe? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And then the school was like, hey, we're gonna just shut down for a little bit. It should probably only take maybe like a couple weeks or a month or something. Everybody just stay indoors, we'll be fine. And we all know how that turned out.
Yeah.
It went from a couple weeks to a couple months and to a whole situation. And so but during that time, and the only reason I bring this up is because there was that moment right between July and June where they were saying like it's not as bad right now. Travel restrictions are taking off a little bit. You can travel. And I did a residency at that time because it was touch and go pretty much all the way up into it. And I went to California, and I was right next to the beach. And I was doing this resident called Iris Project, which I don't think is happening anymore. But while I was there, I was already talking about water. I was already doing these abstractions. And so I went next to the water. I was like, I'm talking about the ocean. I'm right next to the ocean. Let me use part of the ocean in my artwork. I was like, I knew watercolors, you can put salt in it and it like changes the water color. So I was like, maybe salt water will do something. And so I put those salt water into the work and it changed everything. It made me think about place in a different way. It made me think about the body in a different way. It made me think about history in multiple different ways. And so right now what the work is about history, the body as a body of water, the connection between multiple histories in the ocean, specifically also the Atlantic Ocean, thinking about the Middle Passage, thinking about, people who can't swim to also be like most of your body is water. And to like jump in like something that's mostly you and not be able to survive in it is also like interesting to me. As well as like, it doesn't matter who you are, you're mostly water, regardless of skin, identity, gender, whatever, anything like that. So you're all mostly water. And so there was always that connection. And so right now, what I'm working on is like building that even more and then building that into a story. After I was in Venice for the Venice Biennale. I did a show in Venice during that time. And I was seeing all of these amazing works in Venice. And Simone Lee, who won the award for her pavilion, I saw that exhibition and I immediately was like, am I even close to this level yet? And so like, I was like, okay, no, I got to take my art up. I got to top it out. So I was like, I got to figure out a story. And so the whole water people, the whole aspects of water is cool. But like a lot of people ask me, like, who are the people that I paint? And I tell them they're not any particular person. Well, that's changing now. The whole idea of the new work is this story that I came up with, which is basically the people who died in the Middle Passage end up, surviving as beings made of water. Like their body deteriorated because they're in salt water, and so deteriorated, and the soul bound to something else and became water people. Well, the water people create a village, they create a new home, they create a new language mixed in with a couple other different West African languages to create something new. And then they tell their kids or the offspring of this new generation, like, hey, stay away from the surface of water. Don't go by the surface. And kids are like, what? Why would I not go by the surface of water? Do you see like the light coming through and shining? Like, this is really nice. And so, one kid decides, hey, I'm going to go to the surface of the water. I don't care what they say. Well, they're all made of water. Their whole body is made of water now. So he goes to the surface. He breaks the tension of water. And as he touches the other side of the water, his body evaporates. And so as a being of water, he evaporates and becomes a part of a cloud and then reforms in that cloud and then is told this story of him being on the other side of the ocean and being on the other side of the water. And now he has to find his way back. And so he goes through lakes and runs through rivers and becomes rain and experiences life through the lens of being water in a system that is cycling. And then eventually finds his way back to the ocean and tells the story of what happened while he was gone and all these experiences and the things that he saw. And so, like, one of the things right now, the reason I'm working with stained glass is because I was thinking about my life and, like, if I was to go back to the ocean to this new tribe, what would I bring? And thinking about how stained glass in churches and the way that light comes through the stained glass and it's like a whole nother feeling is the same way that you would think about being underwater, seeing light come through that same way. So like, I'm building up this whole story. I'm still kind of working on it, but like, I'm really passionate about it right now. And I feel like this is the next step into the next set of work.
That is amazing. it's an insight into the creative mind and how you come up with ideas about what you're going to create. And I'm just blown away by your explanation of that. That is amazing. I'm really interested in not only see how this turns out, but how you continue to evolve, because I think that you're just getting started. And and sometimes do you look back and think about being a young person in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and here you are now in New York, you're acclaimed artist and you're doing well. I mean, is there some time do you not want to look back, or do you like to?
No, I definitely look back because I didn't go back to school until after my grandfather passed, who, again, I told you earlier, was like really a great inspiration for me. So like him passing and me not doing what I felt like I was supposed to be doing was a big catalyst to the reason I went back to school. And when I went back, I was like, I know who I'm doing this for. I'm doing this for me, but I'm also doing this for the people who have been supporting me this whole time. Because like without that support, there was a lot of things that I would have doubted about myself, and thought like, I don't know a lot of people who are making it out of Milwaukee and doing a lot of different things, either because they don't say that they're from Milwaukee or because of just the way that Milwaukee promotes, talent that comes out of Milwaukee. You hear about people coming from Chicago. So like, obviously like Chicago has so many, talented people. And a lot of people from Chicago know people in Milwaukee, but you never hear from anybody in Milwaukee. So like, it was one of those things where after his death, I was like, okay, I gotta do better in a lot of different ways. And so, I always look back and I always think about it. And I always imagine, who I thought I was going to be or what I wanted to do. I knew it was going to be art regardless, but I didn't know exactly what type of art it was ever going to be. So to be doing this and to be successful in this is just, I thank the man above or the person above. It don't matter, but somebody above me is doing some work. Because right when I decided I was going to go back to school, doors opened up ridiculously. Once I decided to stop working in factories and to actually start pursuing art, so many doors just naturally like, oh, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Here you go. And this is a key. Now, like, walk through. And so it was one again, like, being able to go to Austin Peay, fantastic. Going to being able to ask for different things, like being able to get into the building and people being like, yeah. amazing. Like I needed all of those opportunities to be able to lead me up to what I'm doing right now. And it was just like one of those, yeah, again, one of those things where it was like I was meant to do this, and I knew I was meant to do this. And so like I'm gonna keep doing it and trying to make it even better as much as I can, because without those people helping me and without me saying like I'm gonna make art my thing, it would, I don't know what I would do. I would be doing right now.
Well, one of the things we always like to finish our talks with is what kind of recommendations you might have for a student. I think your story is so inspirational for anybody that might be wanting to, continue on, to press on, to keep following their dreams. But what would you say to a young person today?
I would say my biggest advice is, one, understand how much you can do before you get exhausted. I think that there's always this point in life where people feel like, one thing is going to lead to another, and they overthink a situation and then don't even start it. If you know what you can and can't deal with right off the bat, it helps you be able to determine how much you're going to be able to do, and to like just go for it and then to keep going for it. I knew that, I couldn't work all the time. I had to sleep. I needed to sleep. So I was like, all right, if I can get in these hours to do this and still get 8 hours of sleep, at least 7 hours of sleep, then I should be good. And so that would be the thing. Cause like after practice, I'm dumb tired. I'm just exhausted, but I'm like, I can still go paint though. And I can paint for a while before I know that my 8 a.m. class I got to get ready for. I'll have to have this much time and I need to do this to do that. So like, okay, I'm gonna do that. And the only reason I asked for also permission from Dr. Morris was, again, I was like, okay, I know for a fact I can do this. And I'm going to be able to do this as long as I keep pushing for that. Everybody is always helpful. You just got to be able to ask, and know what you're looking for. Like Austin Peay always had so many resources, and there was a lot of people who didn't benefit from those resources because they didn't know about them, because they never asked or even saw the flyers that were up about it. They're like, we're having a study group here and here in this day. And you ask somebody and like, oh, you going to the study group? It's like, what study group? So like being able to just talk to people, and also understand what your limits are and where you want to be at, it was like the biggest thing. Because once you decide like how much you're willing to put in, doors open up when you start, understanding what you're interested in and how much work you're willing to put in to do it. So I think that, just understanding the limit. Like, if you're like, okay, I need, 2 8-hour, sets of sleep for these 2 days, and then the rest of the week I can sleep this amount of much, but these days I got to set off to the side for me to be able to recoup so I can do the whole week again. Do that, figure out what it takes. And then once you figure that out, just stay consistent. That's the hardest part, is like staying consistent, because when life hits you, it hits hard sometimes, but being able to just push through and think about what's on the other end is always number one.
Well, it's been great, and not only to have you on the podcast, but for you to share your story and to.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's just terrific. And hopefully a reminder for everyone, they can see Khari, and you will be in Nashville September 2nd.
Yeah, showing my first set of this new work with this new story that I'm telling.
So make sure to stop by if you can. But we are always glad to have you back on campus next time you come to Clarksville. Hope to see you in person.
Oh yeah, I'm excited.
Okay. And thanks to all of our viewers and listeners out there for checking out the podcast. We hope you will join us as we continue to profile some of the outstanding alumni we have here in the College of Arts and Letters at Austin Peay State University. So until next time, stay safe, take care, and God bless.